Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's fun to see people in this room again. We're still getting used to being back in the Capitol, but thank you for coming and covering this issue today. As we know that we want folks to be informed and to feel confident about their housing and what their life has in store. So we're appreciative of this opportunity. I'm grateful to be here today, that we can work together to find a legislative solution that safely ends the eviction moratorium while providing a time to access significant federal resources that are available for emergency rental assistance. This off-ramp gives renters who have fallen behind time to get caught up and property owners time to be paid. This off-ramp, in March of 2020, we acted quickly on the first executive order related to eviction actions. The purpose behind the executive order was rooted in public health concerns. The COVID-19 virus was escalating, schools had closed, and there was a heightened awareness that limiting movement was necessary to control threats. Thousands of people every year are displaced by eviction actions, and the result can be that households end up in shelters, double up with family, or sometimes sleep outside. At a time when our message for the entire state was stay home, Minnesota, we needed to ensure that people had a home to stay in. We know that the eviction moratorium limited the spread and saved lives. We also know that it provided some comfort to renters and some discomfort to housing providers. Now that we are at a very exciting point where cases are down and we are at a 70% vaccination rate, we can safely return to many of the activities that we've missed during these past 16 months. And we're at a point where we can safely end the eviction moratorium. Since legislative session started in January, finding that safe ending to the eviction moratorium was a shared goal between the administration, the House, and the Senate. We wanted a measured approach that gave eligible households time to access federal rental assistance and a known timeline that would lessen the impact on the court system and provide certainty to housing providers. In total, the state has $672 million in emergency rental assistance available. Some of this flows through local governments, but the majority of the assistance is available at the state's Rent Help MN program. These are significant resources that will help Minnesota renters who need to stay in their homes. The funds should be available into the next year. And it was a tough and winding road to get here, but we reached this point because of strong state leadership. I want to extend my thanks to our legislative leaders who are here today. Chair Alice Hausman, Representative Mike Howard, Chair Rich Drainheim, and Senator Zach Duckworth. These and other legislators were critical in getting a bipartisan solution to ending the eviction moratorium. The legislative solution may not be perfect, but it is the work of compromise that includes critical components to raise awareness and provide time to access emergency assistance. While today is primarily about ending the eviction moratorium, I want to briefly acknowledge the other key accomplishments in the housing bill. The housing bill includes $125.6 million in housing and additional $100 million in housing infrastructure bonds. The $100 million matches the most ever authorized by the legislature, and that's exciting. This is our largest state source of capital for the development of new, deeply affordable housing. This authorization also includes a historic amount in single-family home ownership development and which is a newer use approved by the legislature last fall. These are important victories that will make a difference in the coming months and years. But today, I want to make sure that the public understands how the eviction moratorium off-ramp works and what the key dates mean. We want to be sure that people understand their rights and their responsibilities. And for some, quick action will be needed. There are important dates and actions for both renters and landlords. And with that, I'd like to invite Commissioner Jennifer Holt to come up to the podium and walk us through the details of that timeline. Commissioner Holt. Hello.
Thank you, Senator Flanagan. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Holt, Commissioner of Minnesota Housing, and it's an honor to be here today. I too am grateful for a legislative solution that provides time for renters to access significant emergency rental systems. Yesterday, the governor took swift action, signing the housing bill into law. Certain aspects of the eviction moratorium off-ramp go into effect today, June 30th. The timeline of the off-ramp, as it's been called, is a period of 11 months, during which the prohibitions of the executive order comes to an end. So as you can see here, right away, property owners or managers can send termination of lease notices to renters who have materially violated their lease. 15 days after that, starting on July 14th, they can file eviction actions against you. And they can file an eviction action right away for renters who refuse to apply for rental assistance. So for renters that have materially violated the lease and were not able to be evicted under the executive order, an eviction could happen by July 14th. Leases can also begin to be terminated at the request of the renter. After that, housing providers are slowly allowed to terminate the leases and then evict households who are behind on rent and not eligible for rental assistance. And then finally, all the prohibitions are lifted. Importantly, the legislation states that a landlord may not file an eviction action or proceed with an eviction action for non-payment against a renter who has a pending application for COVID-19 emergency rental assistance. This is a critical piece of the off-ramp and is in effect through June 1st of next year. To help renters be aware of the quick timelines between now and October 12th, 15 days prior to filing an eviction action for non-payment of rent, a property must provide the following to a household: a written notice stating that the moratorium has ended and that they may have an eviction action against them. It must state the amount of the rent owed, and it must tell the household that they should visit rentalmn.org or call 211 to see if they are eligible for rental assistance. Pre-eviction notice is something that is not generally required. This is unique to the off-ramp. Minnesota Housing and our partners are doing a lot of work to get the word out about Rent Help MN. But we know that thousands of renters still do not know that they may qualify for assistance. The 15-day pre-eviction notice will be helpful to inform renters that emergency rental assistance may be available to help pay their rent and give them time to apply if they're eligible. So today it's important to highlight that there are roles and responsibilities for both the renters and the owners. Renters take action to apply for emergency rental assistance. Those that are eligible and refuse to apply can be evicted starting today. Owners need to provide a notice of non-payment to provide critical details to the renters. Those who need assistance navigating a legal issue can visit lawhelp.org or call 211. Organizations such as Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, represented by Shirley Thompson, can help. And with that, I'll turn it back to the Lieutenant Governor for questions, and we want to invite President to
Thank you so much. And as the commissioner mentioned, we know that this is a change for Minnesotans and for renters, and we just want folks to be informed of their rights in this process during a time where they may feel a little bit nervous. So we just really appreciate you being here, and we just and with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
How many people are welcome to be evicted despite having children available?
That's a great question, Commissioner.
Thank you for the question. First of all, it's important to appreciate that before COVID, About 95% of all evictions were for non-payment. And evictions tend to happen to extremely low-income households, families, single moms. And so if you take a look at just slowing down evictions for income eligible families who are behind on their rent, and with the amount of federal assistance that we have flowing through the state, if we believe it's possible that we could prevent a very large number of evictions. We'll see in the next quarter how many evictions occur around material breach. Based on what we're seeing in terms of who's coming to us for assistance, we know a lot of them are extremely low income. Half of the people who have applied for rent help and then already make less than $25,000 a year. And so, I really believe that the pandemic already discriminated against low-income communities and Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. And it's those low-income households who are going to be eligible. So it's really about getting the word out and helping them through the process.
Commissioner, your new data dashboard shows that about $10 million have gone out through this program, but still, it's about $1 million a week, and some weeks less than that. Why is it still so slow to get the money out to people?
I think the important thing for people who are trying to understand is that there's a lot of back and forth. Maybe you submitted an application online, but it's not an automated payment system. And the federal government created a fairly complex set of boxes that we are going to need to check. There are things that are being done to protect against fraud, double payments, paying the wrong people. And so we're really using deliberate care to make sure that the person is eligible, that when it's time to write a check, the check is going to a real owner that's running a business and it's for the right amount. I think one of the reasons that this long off-ramp is beneficial because it sends the message that this was never going to be something that was just flipped back on with great speed. It's something that needs to be done with great care. And for renters who are out there and are scared, there's time. Just apply to rent help and that.
Can I follow up on that? Do you really need 11 months? I mean, if somebody has to have an application today to be protected by that, do you really need 11 months to get money to landlords? I mean, shouldn't that spook some landlords that they might not get paid for another 11 months?
I appreciate the question. The time frame is really trying to estimate how long the economic recovery is going to take, because there are people who are losing their jobs today. There are people who are maybe not getting back the hours today. Maybe they had other emergency work that they did during COVID, but the impacts of the economy are hurting them today. The federal government tells me that I can give people up to 18 months of assistance, and it doesn't say only for people who were hurt last March. So we understand that the same way there are COVID long haulers, there are going to be COVID economic long haulers. And the beautiful thing about the federal money is it doesn't expire until next year. And this means that people who maybe don't need it for the first time until the end of this year have an opportunity to get in. Maybe they've been paying their rent all along, but they're one of the late cases of COVID that's varied. I don't want to be Commissioner Malcolm.
You said 18 months? I thought it was 15 months.
There are two groups of emergency rental assistance that we received from the federal government. One in the December Consolidated Budget Act, and the other in the American Recovery Plan. The December package is 15 months. The March package extends that to 18 months. So people will be eligible for 18 months total, and that's going back. Of course, you can't go back 18 months because it starts in the middle of March last year, but then you can go forward too. So even if you have not been able to pay your rent since the very beginning of the pandemic, you have to come.
Have you been able to speed up the payment system at all? Has the federal government done anything to ease their complex demand?
The Treasury has not changed the guidance in ways that decrease the requirements that we have for reporting, although I will say that they have been reaching out and doing a lot of discussion to better understand what it means to translate their guidance into a program that's operational in the field. And so we're really glad we've had conversations with the people at the Treasury who are implementing this and the people at the White House who are overseeing the Recovery Act implementation. Yes, you know, the one metric that I look at the end of every day is how many things come out. But it's not that there are, I mean, this is the Python analogy, right? The applications come in, there's a lot of back and forth that happens with both the renter and the property in order to get all the information that's needed to both prevent against fraud, make sure that we're paying the right entity the right amount. And that back and forth is what takes a lot of time. So it's not like there are thousands and thousands of payments that have everything lined up and we're just waiting to pay. There's an awful lot of steps. And if we're doing an automatic deposit into somebody's account, you know, you're really making sure that that money drops into the right account. There's a fair amount of testing that happens there too. So it's proven to be more of a challenge to get the information that we need to pay the landlord. We need to get their W-9 tax documents. We need to find out how they want to get paid. We need to get all that. That back and forth happens as well as with the renter. So it's really just that it takes time for things to move through the queue. I'm own the fact that we knew the line was going to be long, right? We knew the line was going to be long because we knew that there was a lot of need and there was a lot of pent-up demand. So there is a long line of folks, but we are getting to them, but then they require a lot of that. And the very last step that happens is payment.
How many instances have you run into where the checks have ended up in the wrong account?
I have not heard of them.
Senator Drahan. Yeah, go ahead. Maybe Minnesota Nice dictates that you not say this at this particular press conference, but could you tell us what you think and what your observations of this program are as far as speed of payments and ease for landlords and tenants?
Well, you know, we're all dealing with the hand we were dealt, and you know, the guidance from Treasury, from my understanding from the agency, isn't what we would want. You know, we pushed very hard. Senator Duckworth, Senator Ford, Senator Pizzak, we all kind of thought that the housing provider or the landlord should have more of a role in streamlining this process. But we were told that Treasury would not allow parts of that due to some privacy issues. But I think the important part from the beginning of our working group working on this bill, which was very difficult to come to the finish line, was to drive people to the website to get the help. So we can pick it apart, we complain about this or that, but the goal is to get people to help them in or call 211 and get the help they need. You know, I think as of yesterday, we've only paid out, the agency's only paid out 7.32% of the applicants. That isn't good enough for me, but I'm glad the program's there. I'm glad that we have the resources there, and I'm glad we all came together with an off-ramp, because it is time to move on. And I don't know if you followed the lawsuit on the federal level of the CDC, that ruled in favor of the CDC. So I'm glad we did what we did when we did it. I wish it would have been a couple months sooner. But very complicated, a lot of moving parts. I don't think it does any good to tear apart a program. I'm disappointed in the payout percentage, but I'm happy the program's there. I'm happy that we have the resources for the people of Minnesota. So hopefully people will apply. Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor, if I could ask you a question, the governor's emergency powers, the amendment clearly did not pass. I'd just like to have your read on that, and will that affect one of the reasons, things you were arguing is that you needed that to keep a lot of programs going, and keep things smoothly going. Will that affect adversely, for instance, this program or any other programs that you're concerned about?
I think one of our concerns during the COVID pandemic was making sure that people were able to stay home and stay safe. And through our partnership with these legislators, we got to this place where we have an off-ramp. I appreciated your Minnesota niceness up here, Senator. But we got to a place where I think Minnesotans can feel confident that folks came together on both sides of the aisle to get this done and to ensure that we can keep more folks in their homes and make sure that property owners are receiving payments. This was one of the big issues for us, and I think the numbers, and Commissioner Hoy, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the eviction moratorium itself saved over 2,000 lives in the state, and that's pretty powerful. So as we go into into the summer and fall, we know that we continue to increase those vaccination rates, and that's the most important tool in our toolbox right now. Is to ensure that Minnesotans are getting vaccinated so that we can keep control of this virus.
Are you disappointed though, or is it going to be make any problems for you or make it more difficult for you to do some of the things that you're still trying to do?
I think we got a lot of things done. Listen, I've been around this place in different roles as an advocate, as a legislator, and now as lieutenant governor. And the name of the game is compromise. You take those wins and then keep moving forward and let's fight another day for the change that you want to see. So we are going to work in partnership with the legislature through the end here, and we need to come back together to ensure that there's things that are keeping Minnesotans safe. We'll do that.
Commissioner, if you could come up from behind you.
No.
My shoe fell off. Like, so I get back on.
According to your agency's dashboard, 28,000 applications so far, or as of last week. How many do you expect?
There are over 600,000 renting households in Minnesota, so I think that puts it a bit in perspective. I think that we were talking about maybe as many as 75,000, but we also have some of the money flowing through the local jurisdictions, and so they'll be picking up some of that as well. They keep coming in steadily. Frankly, I'm expecting another surge of applications today, and as we'll see, through the next couple of weeks, as people realize that there are going to be consequences associated with not applying if you're eligible. So, you're doing people Minnesota research today by covering this and helping people understand how important it is if you are behind and you're income eligible to apply. That is your protection against being evicted. And it's a long protection. So if you're eligible, please apply renthelpmn.org or call someone.
Well, our policy link said latest was 56,000 households. Does that sound right?
And there's a lot of numbers out there. The only reason I hesitate is that there are so many variables at play tied to the economy, tied to other forms of assistance, tied to how the stimulus maybe help get some folks through. When we opened the doors, we were ready for thousands and thousands and thousands of applications. And we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of applications. And I know that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Minnesotans who are still out there hurting and scared and not sure how they're going to pay the rent tomorrow. And so, my message is, if you can't pay your rent tomorrow, go to renthelpmn.org. And I just don't want to guess because I'd be guessing. And then if I guess high, people will wonder why we guess high. And if I guess low, then I have to guess. I just don't know.
No, we would.
I'm not doing that at all. But I just really don't know. I really don't know because the economy is the other factor. So the stimulus was huge. The unemployment insurance bump up from the feds, and then it went away. And then people had more need, and then it came back, right? And then another round of stimulus. So there's other things that are at play, as well as just the economic recovery overall. I know folks are hurting, and I know we have all.
But all things considered, you do believe that there's more than enough money to cover, even if that number is fluctuating, of how many people you think need this assistance, that the $700 million in that pot will be more than enough to cover anybody who needs help.
I know that this is a lot of fun. Minnesota getting $672 billion overall, Minnesota housing and $519 million. To put $519 million in perspective, last year Minnesota housing was $1.6 billion total. A very, 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 very small portion of which was our family prevention assistance fund, which is the thing that's most like what the emergency rental assistance system was. So this is big. And and it's big because I think Congress appreciated that the economic crisis caused by the pandemic was like something that we wouldn't usually see. And it's giving us an opportunity to run a statewide program so that we can meet the crisis of the moment. And it doesn't matter which county you live in. You have an opportunity to access a statewide program. And then there's some extra, efforts that are happening in the metro jurisdictions that also have their funds. But this is a lot of money for people who are out there and you're worried because you're in line and you don't know if I have enough money, I have enough money. I have more money than I have applications, I have a lot more money than I have applications, so please, don't worry, but take your time, don't rush. This isn't a lottery, the door's not closing tomorrow. We will keep this program open and the dashboard tells you how we're doing. But I've got 519 million minus my admin costs, and a lot of money assistance that's going to go out to the world. So if you need help, please go to Rent Help.
Do you have any ways for landlords who really urgent because they have to do what people?
This is a win-win, right? I think the best thing that can happen is even if the relationship has been strained over the course of the last 15 months, we could joke about that up here too, right? There's moments where the relationship's a little bit more strained in the process. But at the end of the day, everybody just take a deep breath. This is a great gift that the federal government has given us. And if people can just sit down, work together, find the paperwork, maybe the landlord has the office that has the scanner, and they can assist with internet access, call 211, get connected to one of our tremendous field partners. I get it. People are hurting on both sides. The owners can't pay their bills when the renters can't pay their bills. And that creates stress all the way around. But this is an opportunity for us to just take a minute and say, if we work together now, neither of us is going to have unpaid bills. If I evict you, you're going to have that credit, you're going to have eviction on your record, and I'm not going to get paid. The better outcome is to work together, get the application in, get everybody current. But that's the best outcome.
And because it doesn't always work out that way, the other entity that we haven't talked about yet that is also equally concerned are the courts, because I think that the number I heard to your question a few weeks ago was 56,000, and then I heard just a couple of weeks later it's about 60,000. It's a lot of people, and the courts see that, and so we do want to provide time for tenants and for landlords, but the courts have expressed increasing concern. They worry that the volume of conflict that they'll deal with is beyond what their staffing levels provide. So that it's a third entity we haven't acknowledged yet, because things don't always go right, and so the courts play a role in this too.
So the eviction can begin today for someone who refuses to apply. What are the regulations are there any ways that you need a landlord to show this person refused? They didn't just not know about the program.
Joey, I don't know if you want to come up and talk about it. I'm not a lawyer and you're the one that works in the courts, but this would really be when the process begins with the courts. I'm right to ask in this legal aid up to the microphone, if you're willing.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Joey Dobson. I'm trying to get Minnesota legal aid. I think the question was what a landlord might need to show to indicate that a tenant was refusing to apply for one of the covered programs. I think the main point here is there are some pieces of this legislation that are going to require legal interpretation from lawyers on both sides of the courts. And it's a new law, so some of that interpretation is going to need to happen through the court system. And the message I want to give today is we have lawyers across Minnesota available for renters despite their income. We're ready. We're here to help renters navigate the court system if it does come to that. Like I said, there are rights that are embedded in this new legislation that will need to be interpreted, and there are longstanding landlord-tenant laws that might impact these cases too. So we're here. Contact Law Help, and then has information to connect folks to their legal aid office, despite where they are living in Minnesota.
We've got time for one or two more. The sign is just right here. I just want to say to the question of timing, and Commissioner Holland, if you want to speak to this one, you can. But I also know that Minnesota Housing is also built up some surge capacity as well as staffing to try to meet the need, and I think that is worth mentioning here too, knowing that we'll see increased applications, and Minnesota Housing. comments, Snyder marks?
No,
Okay.
Thanks, Tom, city thousands of stories that go about immigration, very interesting. Public information program, meanwhile, we've got for you.
I'm gonna start this and then she can wrap it up.
So we don't.
I think part of it is that we have a lot of families who are in crisis right now, who are afraid. And when you are a family or a household in crisis, you may not be paying attention to, no offense, right, but to the media. But you're dealing with your day-to-day. And so part of our work here is to make sure that we're working in partnership with Minnesota Legal Aid and other nonprofits across the state, and our county partners, our legislative partners who can send this out, right, in their newsletters to make sure that we are trying to meet people where they're at and to sometimes it's hard to get your head above water, to know what to do to do this challenge. So that is part of what we're doing here today, and just you keep reporting on it. That's a good thing. We also catch some of these families who are scared. And plus, the real the good news is that there is help available and in
We will have a smaller version of this infographic if you would like to do that. It's available on our website. I would say that the other thing that we're doing around outreach is that there are a lot of community-based organizations that are used to work with Asian communities, Minnesotans, people of the first language, word of mouth communities, state communities. I hear from people who are helping out mosque members, people who are helping out church members, people who are just helping people that need helpers. And so, I think it's fun, again, time to just thank the helpers, whether you're formally part of our network, or I talked to somebody when I was on the radio program this morning who said she applied and then she realized how much people who lived in the same apartment building probably didn't know about the program. So she is the ambassador in her apartment building for the work. And I think that's fantastic. And because only help when another out, but that's how we move forward. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the conversation. And I know you have to run the and other things all around the world.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.